All right, everyone. Welcome out to episode 97 of a Nerd Named Mark podcast. If you're watching
Woo!
a video, I don't need to do an introduction.
Woo!
I was going to keep it a surprise, be like, hey, guess who's back? Like, it's like, no.
I'm here.
It's on video. You already see Chris. It's Chris.
It's me. Woo!
I was going to do this whole introduction,
I'm the hype man.
where I'm just like, the one person I actually want to talk to, like, number is because you have what I like to call the innocent eyes for comic book movies. Because
I don't read the comics.
Yes. So it's like you get to go in pure of heart and like innocent. And then you get your whole world like shaken to the core because you don't have this pre-notion of what to expect ahead of time. You're just like, it's like, whereas after 22 MCU films, I'm able to shut that off. But I was like, man, like, and you're also picky with your comic book movies.
I'm selective.
That's why when you said you saw it, I was like, I'm shocked. Because
I saw it Thursday at 3 p.m.
I saw it at
I bought my
6.
ticket 2 weeks ago.
Wow. I walked in and bought a ticket.
No, I bought my ticket.
And it wasn't full.
I saw it in IMAX.
We did too. It was not. For some odd reason, the theater by us was playing it every 15 minutes.
My theater was filled to the brim. And the reason I had to see this movie in theaters is because I have been chasing that Endgame fix for so long, that theater crowd feeling. And this was I just knew this was going to be that movie.
Oh, no.
100%. Far From Home. I only finally watched Far From Home Wednesday. The day before I went to see this, Far From Home was okay.
It was.
And I'm glad I didn't see it in theaters.
I guess, well, by the way, anyone who's listening or watching, there's spoilers. This is a spoiler cast. We are talking about
If you didn't figure
everything.
that out yet, I mean, what are you doing?
I'm sorry. There's no way
the
to
internet is dangerous for you.
There's no way to have a conversation without about this film without talking about what happens in it. Instead, we'll be like, he shoots web and swings, and there's villains. The end. Credits. Thwip, done. But okay, so
flip, done. That's the title.
I guess before we get into like the actual movie itself, because you thought Far From was okay. I was the same way. This MCU Spider-Man, even though it's Sony, it's in conjunction with Marvel Productions. They've been working together.
Kevin Feige is involved.
Yeah, this hasn't felt like a solo Spider-Man over the other films. It was always like Tony Stark was in there, and we had a Happy Hogan, and it was always Nick Fury and
Spider-Man and Friends.
Yeah, basically, it didn't seem like the Raimi trilogy where it was Spider-Man, it was Peter Parker heavy, whereas like it didn't feel like that for a while.
And you know what? It makes sense though, because what was the biggest gripe about all of the solo MCU movies? When Tony Stark's house is blowing up, where's Cap? Where's Thor? Where are these people in a world with the Avengers? Where are they?
It's true.
And so I get it, and Spider-Man was the one real, like, up until Civil War, obviously, but Spider-Man was the first like solo film. Civil War was like Avengers Junior, or a Diet Avengers.
It was like
cherry
Avengers
vanilla
zero
Diet
sugar.
Avengers,
zero sugar.
No
calories.
So that was like, that was basically an Avengers movie.
Yeah.
And then they made the Spider-Man, and they had, Tony Stark and all that stuff. And that felt natural. It made sense why you would do that, and it's just like, it also made sense in Far From Home, and frankly, I'm surprised they didn't try and fit more people in there.
I know.
And just be like, hey, you know what? Like, we still believe in you, man. You're an Avenger still.
That was my issue with Far From Home, is because Jake Gyllenhaal was such a good Mysterio. Because the only Mysterio I really ever enjoyed was in the old school video games with Bruce Campbell voicing him, making him kind of like a comedy performer type.
I really liked Mysterio right up until they revealed the truth of Mysterio.
Yeah, that he wasn't interdimensional.
It wasn't even that. It was how petty it was.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, I get it. Like, Tony Stark named your thing Barf. And so you found all these people and put together this mastermind plan, and just so happened that Peter Parker would be like, oh, yeah, this seems like a great idea. Your whole plan hinged on a child making a good decision.
And that's also the issue too. Is like
Irresponsible decision.
they kind of in a turnabout way made Mysterio an Iron Man villain, not a
Yeah.
Spider-Man villain. And it's like, can you not like? That's why a lot of people were complaining. Tom Holland doesn't seem like Peter Parker. He like that's why they made the Iron Man Jr. joke in the actual movie on one of the Time posters or New York Post like posters. And I was like, that was strictly like I feel like it was just them like a nod at the everyone on the internet complaining about Iron Man Jr. It's making them cry babies. And I saw it as, oh yeah, look, that's shots fired at the internet community that's crapping on Tom Holland, even though my issues were I don't want another Spider-Man origin story, but as a whole, this was an origin trilogy.
Yeah, I mean, for modern Spider-Man, yes.
Because I feel like by the end of the movie, he's now actually Spider-Man. Up until then, I feel it was almost like identity crisis. He was just like, where's Toby? Like,
are you saying from the end of Far From Home, or
I'm saying from Homecoming to now?
Okay, no,
like,
but I mean, like, from the end of which movie is he really Spider-Man?
The end of this movie,
No Way Home.
No Way Home, yeah, that's where he's finally.
I would agree with that.
Because up until
this
that, it was
Peter coming into his own. Finally,
it's not Spider-Man and Friends now.
Well, it's also not Tony Stark presents Spider-Man because for
Stark
reasons
Industries
we will discuss,
production.
He's on his own. He doesn't have that stuff anymore. He doesn't have the nanite suit. He doesn't have his Civil War suit. He doesn't have that stuff. He's just Peter Parker doing Peter Parker things
that's what I want.
In an apartment with a door that may or may not close.
We don't know.
You may or may not get your rent when you fix this damn door. Is all I'm gonna say.
I wanted a cameo from him so bad for some reason, and I don't know because I just had this theory.
The door is stuck.
I had this theory in my head that the daughter figured out Toby Maguire's Peter Parker was Spider-Man. Like she figured it out somehow, and maybe she like wrote it in her diary. She's like, I was giving him chocolate cake and milk, and I figured out he's Spider-Man. And then her dad read it, and so he knows. So they would be brought over. And I was like, this is long game where we just got one line from him, be like,
"Where's rent?
Where's rent? Where's rent?" And that's it.
Peter
that's
Parker,
all I want.
I don't care which one. Where's rent?
Yeah, one of you.
You pay his rent.
Spoiler alert: one of you three. Where's rent?
Do we just get into that? Do we?
Yes, we have to. That's the elephant in the room.
Can I just say, I love how they did it.
Oh, so good.
They didn't, because there were all these rumors like, oh, Andrew Garfield's going to be on at 21 minutes and Toby Maguire's going to be 23. I love that they actually waited till the final third.
Yeah.
They waited till the third act of the movie and they introduced Andrew Garfield in a way that's like really charming and like for the one I believe is generally considered to be the lesser of the three Spider-Men.
From public
he
opinion,
was the one I was most impressed with because he had an energy. Like he felt like a guy. I want Andrew Garfield to be Spider-Man again. Having not seen those two movies.
You haven't seen those?
Warning, I have listen, I know what happens in them. I have seen clips online.
Yeah.
And there is one specific part that I am fully aware of that I do wish to discuss later. That was maybe my favorite scene in the whole movie. And again, as a non-Andrew Garfield Spider-Man fan, like he looked way too old to be Peter Parker. He was way too old to be a high school kid.
Yeah,
he was. And I'm sorry if I slip. I don't know if you swear on your show.
I do not. No. I swear. I
don't know if you were still straight edge.
No,
no. For the kids.
No,
the four kids. The four kids dubbed can't have a gun. Point finger. Seto Kaiba, come with me.
For the Michael Jordan meme. Fuck them kids. Like I swear. Yeah. No.
So you would shoot Seto Kaiba.
Yeah.
Oh wow. That's a very different show.
Yeah, no, that's a that'll down the road one day that'll be a Patreon exclusive. But no, I swear.
Patreon money,
right? Patreon money is good. I got eventually one day.
But yeah, the way they introduced him and like the kind of energy he immediately brought to the room. I think of the three, Toby was the weakest in this particular movie, and not that he was bad. But he just like Toby Maguire's Spider-Man is a real kind of straight shooter, you know, whereas Tom Holland is he has that all over the place young energy, and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man has that kind of, hey, I kind of want to be everybody's best friend energy.
Yeah.
Toby is seasoned and you know, he's also older. You know?
All right, it was
So
visibly
he's not his young
no,
spry self
no.
anymore.
He's seen some shit.
Yeah.
He dealt with Spider-Man 3. It aged him 20 years.
Yeah,
Like, mm.
he's the Chris Pine Spider-Man
I
from
was oh,
Spider-Verse.
I will say, like, I'm actually a fan of the Andrew Garfield ones. I would say watch them just from the standpoint of his acting in them is really good from a Peter Parker standpoint after the very stoic, like,
I don't know. I
cut.
watched the scene where like when after school when the bully approaches him,
Yeah.
when Flash approaches him
Yeah.
in school, like I don't know.
That was
I
that
don't think I'm gonna go like the basketball scene and stuff like
Sony.
that. Like I'm not gonna
Yeah.
go out of my way. I'm not gonna go out of my
That
way.
stuff
I
is
I want to maintain the illusion of Andrew Garfield being a really
yeah.
good Spider-Man
He was
rather than watch those films and have my mind changed.
here's the thing.
Because right now I'm like, yo, make another Andrew
Yeah. Oh
Garfield
no,
Spider-Man.
I want to throw. So I use Letterbox and I like rank
Mhm.
films. I do reviews on there, and I did my Spider-Man list of 10 films. Even though there's 9, there's a 10th one because Toei in Japan did Spider-Man.
It doesn't count.
It counts because there's a movie and
Doesn't
it's
count.
number 10. It's ranked 10 out of 10.
Okay, well then it
it's
doesn't
horrible.
count.
He doesn't web swing at all. He's running on the
I
ground
know.
and a hand
I've
comes out.
seen the clips where it's like jumping on the bridge and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah,
It-
I've seen that.
yeah.
I'm aware.
I mean,
See, I am aware of these
yeah.
things, Mark.
But I actually have the first Amazing Spider-Man as number 1 out of all of them. With Spider-Man 2 after that because like the Doc Ock and the acting as that is just like
Wait, are you including No Way Home in that list?
Yeah, No Way Home is 3.
You're wrong.
No, I'm not.
Yes.
How am I wrong? Listen.
Okay, first off, is Into the Spider-Verse on that list?
It's in the top 5. It's number 5.
You're definitely wrong. Okay. No, I'm just solidifying
Into the Spider-Verse.
incorrectness.
I had issues
for the audience to hear how incorrect you are. I need them to understand because you could argue No Way Home or Into the Spider-Verse are number 1. Just right off the rip because Spider-Verse is one of the best animated films ever.
I'm not saying that. Oh, animated wise, one of the best animated films ever. One of the best things Sony's put out.
It's an excellent origin story for Miles Morales. It has such a great cast.
Yes.
It is so endearing. The music, the everything about that movie has a flow. It has an energy that no live action Spider-Man.
I did a whole episode of the podcast recanting my opinions because remember I didn't see it in the theaters because I was like, I don't want to see an animated Spider-Man movie. And then I even tweeted when it came out, I bought it. And then I even instantly tweeted right when I was done, I regret not seeing this movie in theaters. And I take back my blind opinion saying that I hadn't it's an animated Spider-Man film. Why the hell would I want to watch this? Because I'm actually a fan of Miles. And but it's great.
Well, he's the best Spider-Man. I mean, that's just objective fact. One could argue that Into the Spider-Verse is the definitive superhero film.
But Batman Mask of the Phantasm exists.
Listen, you know me.
I know.
Diehard fan.
Oh, I know.
Mask of the Phantasm is a really good movie if you are a really big fan of that animated series. But on its own, the difference is Into the Spider-Verse is an exceptional film regardless of your affinity for Spider-Man.
And you could go
My
into
mom
it without
watched Into the Spider-Verse and loved that movie. That's
no,
always like the thing. She doesn't care.
Yeah. No,
but the moms like that movie.
Me arguing, not arguing.
I don't think she likes Mask of the Phantasm.
We don't have enough time for me to explain the list and why Amazing Spider-Man is number 1. I will say this from a standpoint of Andrew Garfield's acting. How he was in this, like you could tell every scene he was in, even in the Amazing Spider-Man films, he just loved the fact that he got to be Spider-Man. He was a Spider-Man fan since he was like 3. He did interviews where, that was his go-to comic book as a kid. He always wanted to be Spider-Man. And he actually you could see it in No Way Home. He just loved the fact that he was getting to be Spider-Man.
That definitely plays.
And that came across in the first 2 films too, even with Jamie Foxx being blue, which is why Amazing Spider-Man 2 is number 9 on the list. But Andrew Garfield, I want a third one for that. And I wouldn't mind, because there's so much possibilities.
I would almost think you don't even do a third movie. You just basically reboot it. And you just do an Amazing Spider-Man, and then a subtitle.
Yeah.
Not a number. Because the thing is Electro's dealt with, and the other guy, I don't remember his name.
Lizard.
Lizard Man,
Yeah.
is dealt with. They're no longer a threat. So
Yeah.
now Spider-Man has to have a totally different threat because those dudes are cool now.
Well, the Harry Osborn Green Goblin's in the second one. So the Hobgoblin technically is in the Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Wait, I thought you meant for a second. Yeah, no, that's fine. But I
Yeah.
thought you meant like literally, what's his face's
No.
version of it.
No.
And I was like, wait, what?
No. So, but I was thinking this because Toby's age, if they brought Tobey Maguire back as a Spider-Man, that could be the transition for Miles. If they went the comic book route,
actually,
not the video game route. Like, mind you, the video game route did a cool job introducing Miles and this and that. But if we went comic book route, Toby's the perfect age, seasoned and this and that to do that iteration to
see now the thing is, I get it because now the difference is Tobey Maguire would be more of a passing of the torch.
Yeah.
Whereas Andrew Garfield has the potential to be more of the mentor role, kind of like Spider-Man Miles Morales for the PlayStation.
Yep.
Where I think there's more potential there with Garfield as the mentor.
Quick sidebar. I think they're going to kill Peter Parker in the Spider-Man 2 video game and just have Miles take over fully. I just have this weird feeling they're going to kill Peter Parker.
I'm still upset that they're not doing co-op.
I know that would
because that is just the biggest letdown, and I feel like that we as a community have communicated to them that that's what we want. Because I will be Miles and Ross will be Peter, and we're both going to be happy.
At the end of the day, though, regardless of no co-op, it's not going to deter my opinion that game is going to be fantastic.
Oh, that game's going to be exceptional. One might say amazing,
or spectacular. It could be it could be the ultimate Spider-Man game.
I don't know any
especially with that's actually the only ones. I mean,
it could be marvelous. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few titles, but I would see Andrew Garfield honestly if they did a whole swerve where Morbius and Venom are in his universe. They're Andrew Garfield's, cool. And I was like, that would be kind of cool to set up those villains because it's basically already been confirmed Tom Holland's getting a college trilogy now. So we're getting 3 more films with him in college, which is kind of cool because the Sam Raimi ones, while they were paced out good, first Spider-Man film, him in high school. Second one, he's in college. Third one, he's an adult and somehow in church covered in black goo and Topher Grace is praying to kill Spider-Man. Like, I don't know.
The movie's awful.
Except for Thomas Hayden Church. He was so good at Sandman. Like,
yes.
And no one's talking about
the only redeeming quality of that film. Why do you think he's in this movie?
Yeah. My thing is like
there's a reason he's here.
Yeah, and it's so good. Like, I was so happy when I saw Sandman like in the trailer because I only watched one trailer. I didn't watch anything else. I didn't even look at posters. And I was like,
I watched the one trailer that ended with Alfred
CG.
Molina and just like, hello, Peter. I watched that one, and that was the moment when I was like, I have to go see this movie.
And man, Willem Dafoe, if we could go on the side
He's so
tangent,
good.
Like, he is the actor's actor. Like, how has he not been knighted? He should be up there with Sir Ian McKellen. It's Sir Patrick Stewart. We need Sir Willem Dafoe.
No, slow down. Slow your roll.
I don't know. Well,
slow your roll.
Okay, I'm slowing.
Slow it down.
It's slowed.
He's not quite even the best crazy person, but he is exceptional. He is their Mark Hamill.
Yes.
He is their definitive Spider-Man villain.
When he is the
Mark Hamill Joker.
The laugh
or the Heath Ledger Joker.
Yes, but the laugh.
And I'm amazed he did way better in this movie than he ever did in the first Spider-Man.
So yeah,
he was so good in this movie.
And after obviously seeing it, I went back and I saw some interviews and this and that. And I guess he said when he returned, he didn't want to wear the mask and he wanted to do more of his own stunts. He didn't want to like just put on a mask and just be there as a quick cameo, like, haha, there's my iconic laugh and get my paycheck. Like, and that's the thing too, is like a lot of people thought it was going to be like nostalgia bait or over the fan service. And I mean,
this movie does not do that.
There's no nostalgia bait at all. And the fan service was fan service, but it was plot devices. It wasn't there just to be there.
It was fan service in service of the film. It
Yes.
wasn't just for,
Like,
hey, here's this exciting moment to get the crowd clapping. That was Andrew Garfield and
yeah.
Toby Maguire showing up. They had those everybody clap moments,
Oh yeah.
but when it all comes together and how it all fits into the story, it makes an emotionally impactful,
Oh yeah.
movie.
Especially if like when we were in the theater, like I saw families there and this and that, and like afterwards, this dad legitimately was talking to his son. He's like, "Yeah, the other Spider-Man, the older one, that was a Spider-Man when I was in school," and I'm like, "Fuck yeah, Spider-Man's for
That's so
everybody."
cool.
And
Like
I was
that
just
is
like,
that is like the Spider-Man,
hmm,
as popular as like Iron Man has become over the years and Captain America, Spider-Man is Marvel's Batman.
he's
He is
the
he
everybody's
is the
hero.
hero that everybody grew up with a
Oh yeah.
Spider-Man. I remember watching the 90s cartoon. I
Oh,
remember playing the game on the PlayStation. That's one of my
ooh.
favorites.
But
Like, I love that.
I remember the Sinister Six one on like NES, and that was so. It was side. It was like Metroidvania side scrolling. It was trash,
Yeah.
but I remember the PlayStation one. That one was good. Was it
The
like Rise
PlayStation
of
one was
Electro or
real
something?
good. That was the sequel.
Oh yeah, I remember that one too.
There was like Amazing Spider-Man or something, and
Yeah,
then there was Amazing Spider-Man 2 Rise of Electro.
I liked the. Was it that Web of whatever? I forgot the name
Web
of
of
that one.
Shadows.
Yeah, that was really good.
I
I
didn't
hated
play a
Wolverine was in
ton
it,
of
but
I played the only other Spider-Man game I really played. I played Spider-Man 2 because everybody played Spider-Man 2.
yeah,
Uh and that was when I realized I'm not the biggest fan of Spider-Man games because the swinging was fun but nothing else.
yeah.
I'm going to
Everything else
say
was
it.
clunky. No,
I'm going to say it. Um
they weren't
and
groundbreaking games.
honestly, I didn't even play the whatchamacallit, the 2018 Spider-Man a ton, only because that map was so busy.
Was the newest
And
one from Insomniac? Was that 2018? It came out.
yes, came
It's
out
been
same
that
year as God of
long.
War. Yep.
I I could have. I didn't play it until
Miles Morales was
20.
2 years later, remember?
Yeah, I didn't even play it until 20. What year is this? 2020 is when I played it finally. I didn't even play it
I
for the first 2
played
years.
more of it on PS5 than I did on
Yeah,
PS4.
I have to play it on the
And it's
five.
it's it's fine, but like it doesn't like the thing with the Miles Morales one is just like it has a different energy. I like the energy of Miles Morales better.
Yeah,
As a character because I think Yuri Lowenthal is a great fit for Peter Parker and Spider-Man. He's too quippy.
oh, yeah.
It never stops. He just keeps going and going and going. And I just sometimes wish he would shut up. And he doesn't.
That's
And Miles, my only complaint is that Miles gets really depressed a lot. And it's just like, dude, you're Spider-Man. You pick yourself up and you fucking web swing somewhere else.
if you don't
Okay.
like if you
But
don't like a
anyway,
talky Spider-Man, then you probably won't like Andrew Garfield in the Amazing Spider-Man one, especially the first one.
which is also
Yeah,
probably why I
yeah.
don't want to watch
because
those
because his
movies.
personality like
Because
but it's
I can
accurate because his
tell. I can
personality
tell
changed.
that that's how he's like.
He goes from like introverted nerdy, and then he gets his powers, and he kind of gets that, oh, I got powers, and he gets like a little ego trip. So I
Yes,
understand from a
I don't want
character
to.
development standpoint, like now he's like, oh, I'm untouchable, but then he gets the downfall that brings him down, and he has to rise up from, which, going back to No Way Home, is what I didn't. So my issue with, there's never been that like outside of Endgame and this and that, but from a standalone Spider-Man Homecoming, uh, Far From Home, there was never that like sense of doom and gloom where I'm like, oh, how is he going to get out of this? I'm like, he has Stark Tech in the Homecoming. And the second one, I was like, there's still technically Stark Tech. He had the glasses. I'm like, there's no like, the cards were never stacked up against him. But in this No Way Home, it felt that way, which was nice because it's like you kind of knew with everything else going on in the previous films. I'm like, man, I was like, of course, there's never going to be that. Like, he never had that self doubt fully. It never had that like crisis of like, like prime example, Spider-Man 2, Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man no more. He can't even go see MJ in a play. So he's like, you know what? Like, he never had that like crisis within.
I like how they addressed that
Yeah.
in when they were talking. There's this great scene where the three Spider-Men are just talking, and the Andrew Garfield, they're talking about how Tobey Maguire makes his webs because his just come
Yeah.
out of his body.
This
And they're
was
just
so
like, how do
good.
you do that? And he's just like, I don't think I want to talk about this. And they're
Yeah.
like, well, does it come out of anywhere else? And they're like,
Right.
no, no, no. He's like, I don't know how I do it. He's
Mm.
like, it's like breathing. I don't know how I do it. I just do it, you know?
Yeah.
And then it turned to this thing like, do you ever get web block? Because they both talked about that, Andrew
Running out
Garfield
of
mentioned
cartridge.
it, and
He had to
Tom
make
Holland
more.
said, like,
Yeah.
hey, and the reason it's easier to name the actors because otherwise I'm going to say, and then Peter said to Peter that
Yeah.
Peter, hey, you, Spider-Man,
It's like, yes.
no.
That was a good scene too. It's like, Peter, it's like, yes.
Yes,
Everybody all looked up.
Peter Parker, still not helping.
Yep.
We're all Peter Parker.
Yeah,
That was a good. That was a scene for the sake of fan service, but it was funny, and
I'm quite a scientist myself. That was also a nice little. There's so many fan service lines, but they still fit, and they didn't feel out of place at all. Yeah. But yeah, Peter, like you said, Peter, but he did bring up the web blockage. He's like, yeah, there's he brought up basically his existential
time in Spider-Man 2.
Yeah,
it was an existential thing. He said,
yeah.
So they, and that was fun because they all shared a common ground. Yeah. They all had events in their life leading up to and as Spider-Man. And, some of those events happened to Tom Holland in this film.
Yeah. Big spoiler.
I'm sure
big spoiler. And I'm going to get hate for this because might as well go into it while they all can relate something. Aunt May dies.
Yes.
And I did not care. I did not care at all because I did not care about her Aunt May in this trilogy, so to speak.
She was fun.
Yeah, but she didn't seem like the caretaker.
We all knew she was dead though anyway because she literally said the words, "You have to remember, with great power comes even greater responsibility."
Yeah.
And there's that great moment when he meets Toby Maguire for the first time, and he's like, "She told me with great power," and Toby's like, "Comes great responsibility."
And he's just like,
because like he said something like, "You don't know how I feel," and they just let him go.
I made the joke,
and then he said, "That's what my uncle said to me," and that's when Tom Holland Spider-Man was like, that was the realization of, oh my God, like these guys are just like me.
I made the jokes. I called it the Martha moment. Like, why did you say the name? That is the Martha. Now in any film, whenever something like that happens, I'm like, that's the Martha moment. Like it is because it's like that's where it's like they all realize they're all on the same page. They all went this like they really are all in this together, even if they're But her death.
I think Uncle Ben is way more important than Martha. Though.
That's what I'm saying. Well, yeah, obviously.
Or Aunt May.
Yeah, that's why
I like that. I will say, I don't like. I get why they did it, and I expected it to happen the way it happened.
Yeah.
I did like the way they handled it. And like how, like Happy's telling him to run, and like, Tom just doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Because he's a kid, and like, he has, the thing is like we mentioned early on, he as Spider-Man has always had these greater, I say greater in terms of this universe, greater heroes at his back to bail him out, to help him, to save him when he needs it.
Iron Man,
and here
Doctor
he is
Strange.
for the first time completely kind of isolated. And he doesn't know what to do because everything he knows, he's still recovering from the loss of Tony Stark because this movie literally starts exactly where Far From Home ends.
Yeah, it's like a couple days after.
It's not even days after. It literally starts with him saying, what the, and then like that whole thing plays out. But like, he's still reeling from the loss of Tony Stark. That stuff is still recent for him.
Yeah, because Far From Home.
And then he just lost the next closest person, the only person maybe closer to him than Tony Stark.
Yes.
And so
if we're gonna do spoiler, by the end of the movie, he loses everybody. Like technically, he loses everything.
Yeah, we'll save the final.
Yeah,
final
that's.
Details,
but speaking of greater people having his back, I guess like another thing I didn't like Doctor Strange. Like, I'm a fan of Doctor Strange in the comics. The first movie, I think he's one of the more untapped potentials in the MCU. So I'm hoping Multiverse of Madness will finally tap into that. But I mean, he was kind of comedic relief. And when they were fighting each other in the mirror world, that's when I was finally like, ooh, we're finally going to see some like non-time stone good Doctor Strange combat, which was in the first Doctor Strange film. But ever since then, we always had the time stone. And it really played up Peter's strengths because he likes math and this, that. So he's like, oh, geometry, I know this. So I was like, okay, cool.
You know what's cooler than magic? Math.
Exactly. But the fact that somehow, and this is a spoiler, Ned could use his little sling ring so easily.
Well, I think the implication is Ned is magic.
Oh yeah, no, because remember he's like what Grandma said. He's like, I get the tingles in my fingers. It's like,
Yeah, because even Strange like looks at him when he
yeah,
shows up at the end of the movie. He's like,
hmm
"Did you just open a portal?" And he's
yeah.
like, "Yes, sir." And he's like, "Huh."
And they were really
And he
hinting at a
shows
lot when the cape was like saving him. I was like, okay, because like there's a lot of implications, so I could see Ned down the road because obviously they'll sign on multiple films. I don't know how they're gonna. Well, we'll talk about the finale stuff, but like Doctor Strange, like to me, I was like he was moving the plot forward, but his coolest moments were literally while he was casting the spell in the beginning, and then at the
Mhm.
end, and everything else. I was like, he's why are they like making him like dialogue and characteristic wise such a douchebag to Peter? Like,
Well, because Tony Stark is dead, so
I
somebody has
know
to be the
someone
douchebag.
has to be like that dude. Like, but he's like Scooby Doo that shit, and I'm like, I'm glad they like fixed
I
that from
love,
the trailer
I
because the
love
trailer is like,
that MJ. I love how MJ is like, I know a couple of magic words too. Like, please,
yeah. He's like, please Scooby
please
Doo that
go
shit.
Scooby Doo that shit.
And also, I want to dive more into like
I don't care.
Wong
I'm
being
drinking my
source.
frosty. I'm sorry.
Go right on ahead. I want to dive more into Wong being Sorcerer Supreme because he got it by default when they all got dusted. So I'm like, cool, because I don't know if you've seen Shang-Chi, but
Not yet.
Wong's in that.
Not yet.
So
Yeah, because of the blip, he's
yeah,
technically the Sorcerer
yeah.
Supreme.
So it's been pretty cool to see. Like, I'm this film. Like, yes, the trailer for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is after the post credits, and Wong and him are in there a bit, but it's like one of those things where it's like they needed Doctor Strange for the spell to set everything forward to get the multiverse going. But at the same time, like by the end of the movie, I was like, did we need him? Like,
The only reason Doctor Strange is the catalyst for this is to set up Doctor Strange's
yeah.
film.
And it's like it's one of those things
And
that's
that's
like,
what connects everything.
yeah. And I was like,
Because
okay,
all the movies have to intertwine
yeah.
with each other.
Oh, I know. And I was just like, luckily that was it because everything else about this felt so removed from the MCU besides Happy and this and that. And I mean,
I don't
Charlie.
mind Happy being there,
Oh,
though.
I
It
don't
makes
either.
sense for
I
Happy to be
I
there.
I didn't
He was
realize.
always the handler anyway.
I know he's the Coulson now. He's the Phil Coulson,
Yeah.
and I thought it was entertaining because I was thinking about this. I think he's been in the most comic book movies ever because leading into another surprise cameo, he was Foggy to uh, Ben Affleck's Daredevil in the Daredevil movie. He was his practice partner.
Ooh, should we mention that he's totally in this movie,
Oh yeah, no,
just not
he's
as Daredevil?
no, but come on now. It's like Charlie Cox is
It
in this
is.
film, but he's blind and a lawyer, and it's like no, but he's not
Now,
Daredevil.
so just to refresh, because I didn't watch the Netflix series. Is that still on Netflix?
uh, I think so. If not, I think they might have
That
moved it to
he
Disney
played
Plus.
Daredevil on Netflix on the
Yeah.
Netflix series,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because I know that was the one thing everybody was like, "Yo, cast this guy," and then
Uh,
it's Matt. His name Matt
Matt
Murdock.
Murdock. Matt Murdock.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. I'm making sure I remember my stuff. I know some stuff. I
Yeah.
like how they handled that, and he's like,
hmm
you're gonna want a good lawyer, and
He
then like
caught
the
the
brick
brick.
comes in, and he's
Yes.
just like, boom.
Yeah.
He's just like, I'm a good lawyer.
The cool thing was too is like subtly Tom Holland's hand was like right in right
Yeah, it
behind
was
his,
right
so the
there, ready to
Spidey sense
catch
went up
it.
the same time, and I was like, and so Kevin Feige announced,
Excuse me, I think you mean the Peter Tingle.
yeah, the Peter Tingle.
The
So
Peter Tingle.
Kevin Feige did announce on Twitter this and that in an interview that Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock will be Daredevil going forward in any MCU projects. Now, have you watched Hawkeye at all?
Not yet. I'm
I
woefully
won't say.
behind on
I
the
will not.
television.
I will not say anything then.
Is he in
But
Hawkeye?
no.
Okay.
But there's implications.
Isn't
So
Kingpin in Hawkeye or something?
yeah, D'Onofrio,
Yeah.
the same actor, and
Yeah.
that guy is perfect. Kingpin in Daredevil, he was
And you know
great.
what, dude? There's how you start bringing Daredevil into the MCU more.
Oh yeah,
Because boom, now you got Kingpin, who is a
well,
mutual villain of Daredevil
and
and
Spider-Man,
Spider-Man.
and also I believe probably Matt Murdock's going to be in She-Hulk because it is a lawyer comedy drama action show.
A
So I assume
dramedy.
a dramedy. Yes, it is. They even did a Law and Order. Like they changed the logo so it looks like the Law and Order logo now instead of the spray paint She-Hulk. And I'm like, yes, I am for this. But no. So I mean, somebody can't like in that. Even the Charlie Cox one didn't take away from anything. It was just kind of like, hey, we have another New Yorker from the MCU that's a superhero in here. And I like they kept him as just a lawyer because I was like, when I first saw him, like, oh man, I hope, like, the first time I was like, I hope he doesn't come back as Daredevil in this movie because I want this to be just
He might not
Spider-Man.
be Daredevil yet.
I mean, we don't know, but I just really
We
wanted
don't
it.
know. You're
I really
correct.
wanted an isolated Spider-Man story, and that's why I was like okay with the amount of Doctor Strange because he was needed to move the plot forward in certain instances, but it still felt grounded. Peter Parker, because another thing too, Zendaya, I don't know her name. Not
Zendaya?
yeah, that one. I still was never sold on her being the MJ of this one. Like something about like the like she hasn't had any character growth until this film. Like she's been the same like
Yeah.
dry wit, and like
Yep.
not really like the edgy teenager, but not really doing anything from a standpoint of like carrying any scenes or progressing like emotionally or any like attachment. Like I had no attachment. I was like, I wonder like would the scene I know you're gonna talk about when she was falling. I was like, I know
Oh, do
what's
we wanna
gonna
talk about that right
yeah,
now?
we might as well talk about it.
Okay.
I when she was
This is
falling, I was like, if she doesn't get saved, I'm not gonna be brokenhearted at all. Like I really
so
wasn't
so
gonna.
there's a scene, the classic MJ in danger, and I was
Mm,
expecting all 3 of them to save her, but I
yeah.
really like the way they did it. She's falling, and Tom Holland is, like, reaching out. Green Goblin takes him out, and
Mm-hmm.
she watches him get pulled away, and then there's Andrew Garfield who just screams, "No!" and jumps down after her and catches her and saves her, and the theater
Yeah.
erupts.
And his
Just goes nuts.
and
And
that
everyone's cheering and clapping, and
oh
I'm
yeah.
like, yes.
That
And
was
then there's that moment where he looks at her and he's like, "Are you okay?" She's
yeah.
like, "Yeah." And then he's like tearing up, and she's
Yeah.
like, "Are you okay?" And he just nods and he says,
Yeah.
"Yeah." And that
That
was so good.
that was
Maybe the best scene in the whole movie.
for me personally as a fan of the Amazing Spider-Man films. That was my favorite scene, and that also got me kind of choked up because like I always wanted a third film because he never got the redemption for the Gwen Stacy. So like for me, I was just like, oh, that's still
And
from the
he
oh yeah, from the
this
comic book
counts
standpoint, that is
though because
iconic. Oh yeah, no, it is
that
100.
was
Percent
selfless,
Yep.
and he saved not just MJ, but he saved Tom Holland
Oh yeah,
because that would have
that
pushed
would
him
have just.
over the
Oh
edge.
yeah, and
There would have been no
oh yeah.
stopping him at that point. He would have completely
I
gone
mean,
off the
we'll
rail.
we'll talk about a scene in a bit that like there was almost no stopping, but no, that scene for me like that got me. I got choked up because like I wasn't emotionally invested in the Amazing Spider-Man movies. The Amazing Spider-Man comic book run for me is my favorite run. Besides, like I mean, I like Spider-Man 2099. Current new ones, I like Miles Morales Spider-Man, but Amazing Spider-Man that 700 issue run, which I have almost a majority of those. That had the iconic ones, like you had the Gwen Stacy death. So like those were so key in like it was done really well in the Amazing Spider-Man 2. And to see the fact that even though there's a time jump, we don't know how long a time gap has been when the Spider-Man were brought in. You for the villains, it seems like they were brought in the second they realized like Peter Parker was Spider-Man, but we don't know about because Peter Parker always knows he's Spider-Man. I don't know how far after that death that happened, but I'm just gonna go real time of him being aged that like that has weighed on him for at least a couple years. So to
Mhm.
see him like get that redemption and like when he was like tearing up in the snap, I'm like, oh, I was like, this has to wash away some of that like weight off of his shoulders. That like,
I'm just glad that Sony did right by him for
oh
once.
yeah, no, he deserved that. Out of
He
anyone in
deserved
that film,
that.
he deserved that the most. Like everyone will be like, oh, finally we're gonna get Tobey Maguire to redeem Spider-Man 3. I'm like, no, the only issue with Spider-Man 3 outside of Venom, like the acting was never an issue. Like it was just the Venom was the issue, but like everyone else, the Raimi always had great casting. Raimi even said he didn't want to do Venom. That was Sony making him put Venom in there the way it was. He didn't want to. So I was like, that was not. But Toby always dialed it in, was always phenomenal. But like Andrew Garfield, no one gave him a chance as Spider Man after all the end of the first one and all the promotional stuff for the second one. He never got a chance to really like go in on that character and get a trilogy and like show that he is a good Spider-Man. And this was like kind of like not just his character's redemption from the Gwen Stacy stuff, but this was like his redemption to be like, hey, I am a great Spider-Man. Suck it. Because I think he's a good Peter Parker. He stole every scene he was in. Like I thought, like because Tom Holland being young, he had like you said, the young energy, and he was kind of like frantic. Like, what do I do? Because he's inexperienced. You had Toby Maguire, who's like methodical. This is his first rodeo, so he's like. But then you got Andrew Garfield, who's just like.
Remember too. I mean, even ignoring all that, I mean, Tom Holland has Ned.
Yeah.
If nothing else, Tom Holland literally has someone from the very beginning.
Oh yeah.
Whereas none of these other guys have that.
Yeah, but also from the standpoint of like just from experience as a superhero, like if you go back to Homecoming or even Civil War, he had his little knit hoodie style one, and Tony Stark's like, here's a suit. And he's like, oh,
how do you
see
through Stark. This?
Yeah.
Oh,
so it was just like, so he never really had to go in on his own and put in the work and like build up to where he was. Whereas like Tobey Maguire, his energy was like, I'm seasoned vet. I'm too old for this shit. Like,
help
Danny
me,
Glover and
my back, man.
Yeah,
the scene where he's
the
like
back, that
trying
was
to crack his back.
Yeah,
and the nod to Spider-Man 2 when he falls on that car.
Yeah, and that's why I'm just like, Andrew Garfield had like that weird, like not weird. He had that charisma where he's just like in the middle of the road. He's like just happy, like he's still happy-go-lucky. He's not aged and super seasoned, but he's not a novice, so he just has that energy in every scene he's in with them.
He's kind of Spider-Man in his prime.
Yeah, he's Spider-Man Prime. I have too many monitors. I have you over here, and I keep looking over here, and I'm like, the camera's over here.
See, I moved you right under my camera, so it looks like I'm looking at least into the camera.
The way I have my lights set up, if I move it right here, it's going to reflect in my glasses, because for seeing purposes, all my monitors are at eye level. Even though I could adjust them, I just don't want to. But Andrew Garfield, he killed every scene. Like, he was just so entertaining, and I really liked that he got to like talk with Jamie Foxx's Electro, and they were just talking. He's like, "I'll be friend." Like, because in Amazing Spider-Man 2, the interaction between Jamie Foxx and Andrew Garfield was just the dialogue sequences and just how their chemistry was so good. I just wish Electro looked like he did in this one as he did in that one. It probably would have got favorable reviews then, but it was just like,
see, I really liked the moment where like Jamie Foxx was talking.
I know what you're
and
gonna say.
He's just like, you're out here helping people from Queens, you're this, you're that. I just thought you'd be black.
Yeah. He's like, who knows? Maybe somewhere there's a black Spider-Man. I'm like, oh, that was another.
Maybe there's a black Spider-Man somewhere. And I'm like, oh, if only you knew.
Outside of Far From Home, there's been a Miles hint or reference in all the Tom Holland Spider-Mans. Because in the first one, when he was taking down the weapon dealers and Donald Glover, Childish Gambino, he was like, I got a nephew and this and that, and he's like, gotta call him, and he's like, his name's Miles.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Okay. So like, it's not the first time they tease this, and that's why I'm just like.
But then what was it in Far From Home?
There wasn't one in Far From Home. Other than Far From Home, there wasn't one. But even then, I'm just like.
Oh, I thought you meant this.
Yeah, no, exclusively. So I'm just like, that's 2 times now in a trilogy. I was like, it's gonna happen, especially with the popularity after Into the Spider-Verse, and the Miles Morales comic book is so good right now.
Honestly, I think Doctor Strange is gonna do some shit, and it's going to open up the multiverse for more of this potential. And I bet I would be willing to bet money that Miles Morales gets a film in Phase 5 as a result of the Multiverse of Madness, and B, I would bet money that we get a follow-up to No Way Home where we bring those Spider-Men in, we bring in Miles Morales, we probably bring in Venom from the Venom movies, and then they also bring in like they basically are just going to they're going to bring in like Spider-Man 2099 or whatever. I bet they're going to do a big Spider-Verse live action. Like, this is not Spider-Verse, and a lot of people are comparing it that way. This is not Into the Spider-Verse live action.
This is more like
the Web
of
Spider. I bet they will
Spider.
make one of those.
This is like the Web of Spider the
Web
weird
of
run.
Shadows?
No, well, that's the game.
Oh,
No,
oh.
there's the like Madam
I thought you
Spider
were
and stuff
talking
like
about the
that.
game
It's
again.
going
I'm
into the
sorry.
'90s cartoon a bit in
Yeah.
comics, but I don't think that would happen so soon. Maybe Phase 6 or 7, just from the standpoint of they have.
You're
It's just
assuming we're getting to phase 7? Okay.
oh, come on now. Like now that they got all the Fox properties back over, like
Fair enough.
they got a lot planned, especially
I'm
with how.
just saying by phase 5 there will be a Miles Morales
Yeah,
solo film.
we're on Phase
And
4
by
right
the
now,
end of
right?
phase 5, we're in phase 4. By the end
Okay,
of
yeah, by
phase
the
5
phase
or
5, yeah.
beginning of phase 6,
Oh yeah,
there
yeah, I can
will
see that.
be a Spider-Verse live action movie. They're
Honestly,
going to bring back Garfield again. They're going to bring back
there's
Maguire because this was too good. And they're going to bring in, Miles, and they're going to do all that stuff.
well, the good thing is it's
I wouldn't be
Sony,
surprised if they
not
CG'd in
Marvel.
like the video game Spider-Man, and just do like that kind of dumb shit,
I
but
don't.
just make it really good.
Well, because the next animated Spider-Verse film is like 2 parts, I feel like it'd probably be pushed back a little bit further from that.
Which I feel like, stop doing that.
No, I don't like 2-part endings. I mean,
Stop
just because
doing
Harry
that.
Potter did it, that's because the last book in Harry Potter is like
You're not
huge.
Avengers.
No, and even Avengers that they split it up, so it wasn't part 1 and part 2. It was 2
Right.
isolated films. This
And they
one's
did a
part 1.
superb job.
Yeah. Oh
And,
no,
obviously Spider-Verse,
did
the new
great,
one isn't
but
out yet, and we don't know, but like,
yeah,
I hate it. Don't call it part 1 and part 2.
I don't.
Because that indicates to me you're just going to have a cliffhanger at the end.
Oh yeah,
And then, like, Infinity War was not a cliffhanger.
no,
A lot of people think it's a
people don't realize
cliffhanger.
that was a
It's
defined
not.
ending to that
Thanos
film.
won.
Yeah, that was a defined ending.
That was Thanos'
yeah.
movie, and that
Yeah.
just solidified that it was his movie. He was the hero, and that's why at the end it said Thanos will return because it was his movie.
We
He
gotta
knew
get
where to
back,
get the
we got
particles.
back to Spider-Man. We gotta get back to No Way Home
We
because
got to
there's
spoil more of Spider-Man.
yes, we do. We have to spoil more. So yeah, we talked about Aunt May dying and Charlie Cox. Like
Did you
I just
say
want to talk.
Ant-Man dying?
Yeah, I said Aunt May, but I mumbled
Oh, I thought
because
you
I didn't
said
really.
Ant-Man. I was like,
No.
wait, what? That's not.
Okay. Speaking of
not this
Ant-Man, was
movie.
supposed to be in this movie. By the way, he was, and then
Really?
they cut it. And then the
That was smart.
actress who played Tony Stark's daughter, also had film scenes that they cut. Also, so I'm
That was
curious.
also smart.
Yeah, but so Willem Dafoe, we gotta have a conversation about Willem Dafoe. We haven't talked enough about this man. When he had the hoodie on and the suit underneath, and he was fighting this and that, I was like, oh, are they gonna rip the hoodie? Is he gonna get the actual Green Goblin hood? And they gave us that, and it made sense, and it was fan service at 100%. And I like the action sequences, the fact that he wanted to do most of his own stunts, they made Green Goblin just like a top tier menace in this. Like
He was messing people up.
that whole entire fight scene, like in the condo and through like the floor when he's thrown through the floors, this that I was like, wow, this is probably the best combat sequence in any Spider-Man film.
I think this film might have had some of the best fight choreography I have ever seen in one of these movies, because usually it just gets all caught up in like the cinematography and
the
stuff.
webs, there's no web
like,
flips everywhere like they rely on.
This was just well choreographed fights. It was very clear what was happening. You weren't confused. It wasn't like the Michael Bay syndrome, of like who is what and what and
lens flare everywhere. Like just pad shot really quick and just zoom out.
Should we
No.
real quick, I guess we should state, so the reason all of these villains aren't just promptly shut down is because Tom Holland has the opportunity very early in the film to send these people away back to their universe, but he discovers the one thing they all have in common is that they die fighting Spider-Man,
except for Sandman.
Yes,
because Sandman went back to his family.
That one's weird, but he also knew who Peter Parker. But all the others, Sandman didn't need to be rehabilitated. No. He just needed to go home.
Yeah, he just wanted to see his daughter.
But there is that whole thing of they all, everyone but Sandman dies fighting Spider-Man, and so Tom Holland, MJ and them are like, yo, we can help these people, and so Tom Holland decides, I'm going to help you guys, and because Green Goblin. At the time, Willem Dafoe is sitting there. Norman Osborn is like, help me. Like he's fighting off his demons again. And he's like, help me. I'm scared. I don't know where I am. I went to my house. Someone else is living there. There's no Oscorp. I have nothing. He's like, help me, Spider-Man. And and Aunt May tells him, no, it was Aunt May. It wasn't MJ. I'm sorry. It was Aunt
No.
May who said, you have to help these people.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's
Also,
not my responsibility. It's not my problem. And she's like, that's not what we do.
Yeah. Also,
And
really quick.
so, what?
I like how we're this far in and we actually really talked about plot points. So I'm glad we're actually talking about the plot. But my thing is, after the condo scene, when he turns, I'm wondering when exactly he was actually Norman Osborn and he wasn't like batshit crazy, like, and it was an act. I wonder where that switch happened, because
That's the thing.
Because
You
I've
never
seen the movie.
know.
I've seen the movie twice, and I was purposely trying to pick up on it the second time around. I cannot tell.
You can tell when he clearly has the evil intent, but that's not necessarily the moment he flipped.
Yeah, and you can't tell.
I think it might have been when they got to the condo and when he saw
the
I
Stark
think it's when he
tech.
saw the Stark tech.
That's what I was thinking when he saw, like, you can
That
create
I
whatever you
think is
want.
what kind of set it off in his head of like, oh, this is better than anything I have.
But don't forget, as crazy Norman, he could change his fate and pretend to be the innocent one. So I'm just wondering how far back did he really realize, like, no,
I think it's when he saw
the voice
Stark
change.
tech,
The voice change when it was raining and they're in the condo and he's just like, and he just turns and he has that weird I can't even imitate that grin he does. And he just turns and I'm like,
so good.
oh. I was like, give me a Green Goblin trilogy. Like, I didn't realize, like I said, I rewatched all 5 previous films of like Raimi and Amazing. I didn't watch like Homecoming and Far From Home again because I've already seen them, like, but I haven't watched those other ones in a really long time. And I picked up the Blu-ray, and I'm mad because they just announced the Raimi trilogy is getting 4K next month. But yeah,
I digress.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick up the 4K. But no, like, I didn't realize, like, I realized that watching those again, I'm like, oh man, all this casting choice is really good. But the fact that it's been so long, and Willem Dafoe, like, he just, it was almost like no time passed. Like, he was still just spot on Norman.
He's better now than he was.
Oh no, he's definitely better.
Infinitely.
Oh yeah. And I'm just gonna call him Alfred because I can't pronounce his last name because I always forget
Alfred
what
Molina.
it is. Yeah, Molina, that's one. I thought he did so good, and
I like that he was the first one they introduced. Like, because he at the time of those films, he was the best villain of that trilogy.
Oh yeah, and especially from
without
not just an acting choice, but
I still love, like, one of my favorite lines when he's like, "Give me the woman," and he's like, "Of course." Goes to hand, lets her go.
Yeah.
Whoops, Butterfingers.
Dude, when I was rewatching Spider-Man 2, I loved the bank fight scene when he was robbing the bank. He's just throwing the coins, this, that, and he's like, and they were just like fighting, and he just kept going after Aunt May and just like throwing her up on this and that. But like, it showed at the time, like, the CG was so good on that, but he really carried that character because Doc Ock is like an iconic Spider-Man villain, but I never thought it would translate well to film because there's only so much you could do in film with a comic book character that has freaking 4 robotic arms. But he was able, like, when he was talking to the arms and this and that at the end of 2, we're like, no, you're going to listen to me. You're going to work for me. And then he's like, I was like, man, he is talking to a green prop that they're going to CG into these things, and he is.
Well, no, remember they had the mechanical arms.
Oh, that's right. But he was, I forgot they had the.
Because remember, Willem Dafoe was playing with them.
Yeah, I forgot he was. Well, fucking Dafoe. I forgot he was on the set for that. Like,
he wanted to be Doc Ock.
Yeah. Willem Dafoe. I gotta watch the special features on those again.
They also did that song, the one where he's singing the song and he's doing the dance with the tentacles.
That's what happens when you have classically trained actors on set.
But yeah, like the first 2 villains they bring in are Doc Ock, followed shortly after by Green Goblin.
Yeah.
We don't see much Green Goblin early on, but I like the Doc Ock thing where he gets in the big fight with Peter. And like, again, this is Peter. So remember, Toby Maguire's Peter Parker went toe to toe with this guy and held his own. Here is Tom Holland, Peter Parker, with his teched out nanotech suit, and there's freaking Doc Ock giving him the business. He has not fought someone like Doc Ock before, which I think, again, is a credit to Toby Maguire.
Yeah.
He might be the strongest of the 3 Spider-Men.
I think he's like, because remember, going back to the web being created in his body, I think he technically is like, from a bite standpoint and power standpoint, he's like got the purest spider. Like, he hasn't relied on anything else. Enough. Like, like
He
when
is definitely. I think it just emphasizes just how
yeah,
strong he is, and like that's a credit to Alfred Molina too, and to Doc
yeah,
Ock of like he was like because there was a lot of times in that movie where it's just like yo like Spider-Man is kind of giving him the business a lot of
yeah,
times, but like this dude just shows up, new Peter Parker, never seen him before, never seen this tech before. Peter sparks or sprouts the arms and stuff, and he's just like, oh, new trick, and just goes at him,
yeah.
and like
Oh
no
yeah,
fear from this dude, and he is just like so cool.
right. That's why I was just like, man, like it's. I mean, the only two that really like. I mean, Sandman had a good amount of stuff in it, but Lizard was kind of like just. I think that was one that just felt out of place the
He
most.
was there because he was the other villain.
Yeah, it's like they picked one villain from every Spider-Man movie previous.
I
Uh,
like. Did you notice how this ended up being kind of a Sinister Six movie?
oh yeah, no, okay. So technically speaking, it's I believe the Ultimate Six because the Sinister Six was like Rhino and it was Kingpin loading. This is more of the
Yeah, but
Ultimate Six from the Ultimate Universe, and I love that
I just
because
meant in
yeah,
spirit.
no, it's
You
very
know, it
yeah,
was like
definitely Sinister
yeah.
because the rumors ever since Amazing Spider-Man 2, there's an Easter
Was
egg
that they were going to do
where in
Sinister Six?
Oscorp they had this weird room with all these different cages in a row, kind of like Tony Stark's like suit wall, but each
Mhm.
one had a label on it, and you could see Vulture's wings just sitting there on a display in Rhino's suit, and then this and that, and then there's a scene where Harry Osborn was on the computer swiping out. You could see like Venom Project and this and that on this little screen. So they were hinting at because Sony was going to do a Sinister Six film. I'm kind of glad they didn't do it after that, and we got this instead because
This is much better.
it would have been a jumbled mess because they couldn't use Kingpin. They couldn't like there wasn't enough like hype around
There
it, or
wasn't
there's not
enough
been.
continuity.
But
I
we'll
realized.
see
I
some
just
familiar
realized
faces.
we didn't actually talk about like the crux of the plot. Um, so the whole movie basically starts. We skipped over this because we were really excited. This is
Everybody
the
knows
best.
Spider-Man.
This is the best slash worst spoiler cast imaginable because it's just two dudes really talking about how much they love this movie
Yeah.
and in the most like we love this movie possible,
Mm.
and without really spoiling anything because we just keep talking
We
about how
spoiled
cool
we
these
spoiled
few things
cameo.
really are.
We spoiled cameos in some plot points in some specific scenes, but it's like we're not spoiling the whole movie. So you're getting half spoils.
Oh, do you not want me to spoil the rest of the movie?
I mean, I don't know. I don't
I
want to
feel
make
like
it too
it's
long.
important to discuss.
The plot
So
movie for the
it
main
all
thing of what
starts.
started
Everybody
everything.
knows who Peter Parker is.
Yeah.
Everybody knows he's Spider-Man, and there's a growing group of people who believe Morbius, who or not Morbius. I'm sorry, who
Mysterio.
believe Mysterio. See, we're talking Morbius.
Mm.
I can't have more than one M name in my head at a time.
Really quick though, sidebar. If it's like people brought from I see the conundrum now of that J. Jonah Jameson being in Tom Holland's
Yeah, it's
Spider-Verse.
weird. I'm really surprised Toby Maguire,
Yeah.
like Spider-Man, never commented on that. Of
Yeah.
just like, how do you know this guy? I
And it
work
goes
for him.
because I watched Spider-Man recently, like 1 and 2 and 3. Yeah, so everyone knows he's right because I forgot because I didn't watch Far From Home like recently. I forgot that at the end it was just like, hey, I knew they said Peter Parker Spider-Man, but I didn't know they had that he spliced together all that stuff
Oh
that they
yeah, he
played the
set him
audio, the
up.
footage. Yeah, and I was like, I forgot all about that. I was like, ooh, that's good.
Yeah,
And
he set him up so
and I
bad.
liked the whole montage of them being questioned by the DODC, Department of
Yeah,
like
and
Damage
Ned like
Control.
just being like, "Hey, I knew for the long. I was
Yeah.
helping him with
Yeah,
all
what are you
this stuff."
talking
And
about?
it's
Like,
like,
I'm the
"Oh,
man
so
in the
you're Spider-Man's number one
I'm
accomplice."
the
And it's
man in
just
the chair. Everyone needs a man in the chair. I got a man in the chair too. He's like, yeah, so I have to like, you're the it's like Ned.
you're the number one accomplice.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like basically Peter Parker's life falls apart for him,
Yeah.
Ned, and MJ because they're trying to get into college and all these colleges are just turning them down because they don't want to deal with the drama.
Yeah.
And so Peter goes to Doctor Strange and basically says, "Hey, isn't there like a spell you can do or
Yeah.
something?" Like kind of endearing to him as like, "Hey, we got fucking dusted together.
Yeah.
That is a bond that we share, and then we came back and saved the world. Can you do me this favor?"
I like that he brought up the time stone too. He's like, I don't have the time stone. Which
Yeah.
I have a lot of questions about now. Like, because if all the stones had to be returned to where they were, he should technically have the time stone still.
Yeah, but they were returned. Remember, the timeline's fork. So he restored the original timeline, but this timeline is a fork.
Yes, but if we go,
They're still on a fork.
I know I watched Loki and they explained the forks and stuff more, and I'm like, eh.
I didn't watch Loki, and I understand
They
the
explained
fork.
it more,
Okay,
and I was just like, I don't care.
this
There's
is what
still some.
happens when you grow up watching Star Trek.
That's a good point.
uh,
Yeah,
but
not Deep Space Nine.
TNG baby. What was I saying? So he goes, and Doctor Strange is like, okay, I can do this, but everyone is going to forget who you are, including me. And he's like, well, Aunt May can't forget me.
Well, you should say he's
And
saying all this while he's casting it,
yeah, so he's
throwing them
casting
off.
and he's changing the spell in real time. He's like, well,
Yeah.
no, I'm with MJ. I can't do that. And Ned,
Ned,
and then he's
yeah.
doing this. So he basically breaks the spell, and Strange contains it at the last second.
Yeah.
But it ends up breaking the multiverse and starts bringing in everybody who knows who Peter Parker is able to cross the multiverse to get to their Earth.
Yeah.
That's how Alfred Molina shows up. Peter's trying to appeal to this like
MIT,
person from MIT.
Yeah,
and he's like, hey, just help me get my friends in there. And she's like, okay, I'll think about it. And then, he saves her life, and she's like, okay, I'm gonna get you guys in. Don't worry. And Green Goblin shows up.
We
and
forgot the main thing too is when he tells Doctor Strange, like, he's like, it's so they can't go. He's like, did you try talking to her? Like, it just showed the young immaturity of Peter Parker in the sense that, like, he didn't think to maybe I should make a phone call, because even Doctor Strange, did you try calling them? He's like, I could do that. It's like,
yeah, he didn't know that he could just call the school and like appeal it.
Yeah, and so it was
He's
one
like,
of
you didn't call them.
It also showed the dynamic
of
of like, even Ned and MJ even, were kind of hinting at the same thing. And I was like, it just showed, like, out of all these films, like, we never really got like Tom Holland's Peter Parker to, like, I don't know, mature, I guess, because everything happened in such a short time frame when you see everything. And we never, it was nice to kind of see this was the film where I felt like he learned the most in this film about himself and just life in general. He had a lot of life lessons, which is why I'm like, this is the best Tom Holland Spider-Man film. Like, I mean, the Homecoming was good. We had Iron Man in it.
I would argue this is the best Spider-Man film.
I know we don't need to bring up the list again. But yeah, no. So him, appealing that was like, that was actually really, like, that highway scene was so good, and it liked, was really good. Goblin showing up at the end of that fight scene. But man, so Doctor Strange gets a box to contain the spell, and there's a button he presses that basically reverses everything, and so
Peter rounds everybody up.
Yeah, so he rounds everyone
up. Magic web.
Okay, I like his new suit was just his green paint stained suit inside out, and he taped an iPhone to it to FaceTime with them. And it was actually kind of cool that so one of the next villain he fights is Electro. And I kind of like the fact that Sandman, because he just saw Spider-Man in the suit, didn't know it's not that Peter, helped him neutralize Electro.
He's like, Peter, it's me.
He's like, oh yeah, you. He's like, want to help me with this kite? He's just like blocking it. And I was like, it made me sense of like really good dynamic of, hey, it's Pokemon Electric's weak against ground type. And I'm like, yeah. I was like, Jamie Foxx used Thunderbolt. It's not very effective. It's like Sandshrew dodged it. And I'm just like, it was like a lot of fun. It was a really quick scene, but then I liked how he caused all that damage and he's sitting there with a web and he fixed all the power lines.
But it's all web. So they he did it. He's like, I'm going to stay here and fix it so they don't blame me for this too. But then it's covered in webs.
Yeah.
So of course they're going to blame him because who else could it be?
Oh yeah.
But
it was,
yeah. So he gets everybody together and Doctor Strange is like, okay, I'm sending these people back. And that's when Peter's like, no, I can help them. And Doctor Strange is like, it's not our problem. They're going back. Peter fights him. Peter traps him.
Okay. Before that, I liked that Doctor Strange now pulled what his mentor did to freaking Banner out of Hulk, knocking his spirit out of him. But then his body was still moving. And I was just like,
sense is just too good. Yeah. And it's just like moving. And he's just like, how are you doing this? And Tom Holland just kind of swims back into his body.
He's like, I don't know. He's like, this is kind of cool. Kind of tingles. And then he
I love that
the swimming killed me.
Spider-Man is kind of like the antithesis to Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
He's his worst villain.
It's kind of like,
because there's something about him and he can't explain it and he can't do anything about it. And it's just, it confounds him and he gets mad.
And it's not the Tony Stark relationship where Tony Stark was kind of like the mentor father figure. Doctor Strange is kind of like the annoyed like older brother or annoyed uncle where it's like, I gotta watch this kid.
I don't put up with your shit.
Yeah. He's like, no. It's like an unhouse trained puppy, and Doctor Strange just wants to get a newspaper and like hit him on the nose constantly. Be like, no, bad Parker. Bad.
Bad Parker. We
keep
do
your
that
web
outside.
inside your shooter. Keep your web inside your shooter. It's like there's web everywhere. Damn it. But no, their fight scene though, that was some of the best. Like
It was really good.
The mirror world was one. Like that was. Did you see Doctor Strange?
I've seen clips.
Oh, because that whole mirror world fight scene. There's a whole extended version of that with a whole bunch of wizards fighting each other in the Doctor Strange film, and it's crazy. It reminds me of like Inception with just all this other weird shit, and it's so good. So if you like that fight scene between them, I would be like, hey, go check out Doctor Strange. It's actually
I
a
plan
really good
to
film.
eventually do a full viewing of the entire MCU at some point.
Nice. That fight scene between Doctor Strange and Peter Parker was so good. It was like a hint because like it still felt like a Spider-Man paced fight with him being able to swing around still and dodge stuff, but you still got the mystic arts thrown in there. And because like the trailer kind of gave it away that like, you know, they were going to fight each other, but I didn't know it was going to be that long of a fight. And also set up
that close of a fight.
Yeah, and it set up Peter Parker for what he's into, because like in Amazing Spider-Man they really set up that like Andrew Garfield was more like into not just tech and stuff like that, and Toby Maguire was like more into chemistry, and now Tom Holland is big on math. So it was like kind of set up what more of the personality of Peter Parker, that he's a math whiz, he likes math. Like we didn't get a lot in other films like his actual personality outside of him being Spider-Man and dealing with other superheroes. So we finally got little hints. So I even saw that fight scene as a little hint, like when he's like, this is geometry. I love and know geometry. And then he's like, and I'm like, oh, so this Peter Parker is more math based. I was like, cool. That's something, a personality trait we really didn't fully get into at all. But now we are for a quick scene. But it's that little.
Well, I mean, there was the time that when he was fighting Cap in Civil War, and he's like, the things you like. I don't remember exactly what he said, but he basically implied the things Cap was doing with a shield seemed physically impossible.
Well, also the fact that I don't count that because it's Captain America's Civil War. I'm just from a standalone Far From Home, Homecoming, and No Way Home, the Home trilogy. That was the one that was like, okay, that all the stuff that he was like Infinity War and this and that, and like but there was a lot like I guess we gotta talk about the end because it's long and I'm gonna go soon.
Fair enough. Yeah,
we have to talk about, before we get to the ending of everyone forgetting, the fight scene with Goblin at the end, because that was so good.
I love the fight scene. Like I like. So I guess we should state that Peter ends up accomplishing his goal. He slowly but surely, like the three spider people all team up, and like it's rough in the beginning. And they're just like, hey, you know, like we gotta coordinate. Like we're all used to doing this by ourselves. We're not used to working with other people. But like they really get their stuff together and they start curing everybody. You know, they cure Electro. They remove
that was some of the
electricity.
best sequences.
Yeah,
like because I thought it would be kind of like weird having that many Spider-Man, because that's a lot of CG for like the motions and this and that, but it's flowed so well.
Can I also just say real quick, I love the Doc Ock redemption tour that happens because he's the first one they fix. They fashion a new chip. So Peter's like, hey, this chip is fried. And so they're taking control of him, and he makes a new chip out of Stark Tech and he puts it on. And Alfred Molina's like, the voices are gone.
Yeah.
And he's just like, oh my God. Oh my God, thank you so much. And like, you know, before that, he's threatening to kill him, but he's just like, oh my God, thank you so much. And I'm sitting there and I'm kind of like waiting for the heel turn. I'm waiting because then Electro at one point is like, I liked you better before, and then zaps him. And I'm like, it's Stark Tech.
Yeah.
It should be able to handle that.
Yeah.
And then
the
later,
chip fried out last time. That's how
in the final fight, he comes up and he grabs Andrew Garfield and he grabs Tobey Maguire while they're fighting Electro. And then he grabs, Electro has an arc reactor. And he just rips it off his chest and lets them go. And I'm like, yes!
The Fabricator is the one from Far From Home that was on the jet or whatever that that we made his new suit. So it's the same, because they're living in Happy's condo.
Yeah.
So the fabricator's back there, and that's where we said we knew Willem Dafoe's Osborn was turning evil because he's
Yeah.
like, what is that?
He saw that and he was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, that's what I need."
He's like, that's how I look at tacos on Taco Tuesday. I'm like, ooh, what is
Yeah.
that?
But yeah, so
Tacos.
Doc Ock did not heel turn as I was concerned he
I
might.
I was so
And
happy for that.
he got his full redemption arc
Yeah.
that he deserved in Spider-Man 2
What a lot
because
of people,
he was the only one who really turned around and was like
yeah, because
a good guy at the end.
yeah, because he turned good in that, and he died because he was
He
good.
was always capable of
Yeah.
being good, and that was the thing.
The main thing too
So
is
for him to be able to have that moment, and then Green Goblin comes,
my favorite thing
screws
was,
up his tentacles.
did you see how happy he looked when he realized Norman was alive? When he finally had the voices gone, he was like,
He's just like, Norman,
because
you're
they
alive.
worked together. And I had a debate with someone because they were
That
just
might have
like,
also been the moment.
yeah,
When that might have actually been the moment when Norman saw him fixed, and then the evil side probably came up and was like, "Oh shit, they're gonna kill me." That could
yeah,
have been the moment. That
true,
might have been the survival kicking in, and that took
yeah.
over.
I also thought maybe the serum he was making, because he was working on it, was going to boost the powers.
I thought about that too,
Because
actually.
we had a Super Shredder moment in that hallway. When he was, I was like, man, is he Super Shredder now from TMNT 2? He got real strong. I was like, that's a strong boy
Again,
right
Toby
there.
Maguire's Spider-Man is
Yeah.
apparently very strong.
I was
He
honestly
did stop a
hoping.
train.
Yeah, I was honestly hoping there would be more interaction between Tobey Maguire and freaking Willem Dafoe. I kind of was hoping there'd be a little bit more.
The only interaction we really got, I really didn't like. And that was at the very end after they told Peter, yo, don't go out there and try and kill him.
Yeah.
And then the first chance he got, he tries to kill him. And I'm just like, come on, they just told you not to do that. And then Tobey Maguire saves him, saves Willem Dafoe, and then gets stabbed. I didn't like anything about that
thought he was
sequence.
gonna die.
That
I
was
thought they
the
were gonna kill him.
one. No, there's no way they were going to kill him.
I know.
100%. I
Plus
knew,
he could heal.
and I knew for a fact they were not going to kill him.
Which is why also he's the strongest of the three, because he's actually one of the only ones that actually has healing factor, so to speak.
And he is like, I've been
Tom
stabbed
Holland's
before.
always yeah, he's he really because
he literally says, I've been stabbed before.
Yeah, I know, and I was like, oh, but yeah, no,
I didn't like that whole series of events though, because that just felt so that felt so forced, because that has never been Tom Holland's Spider-Man.
Yeah,
it has never been vengeance, and I understand that Aunt May is dead, but he never went out of his way to kill these people.
But that's the thing, it's foreshadowing when Aunt May first died, and they were like, yeah, this happened, and I went after the guy, and he died, and I didn't feel better after that. They kind of foreshadowed that was going to happen.
I know, but I hate that they did it in such a cheap way. It didn't feel good in the moment, and it would have been a better situation for him to have that opportunity. It would have been better for him to pick it up and just throw it away and just have Green Goblin be like, oh, why won't you kill me? And he's just like, I'm better than you, and that could be his growth. But instead, they kind of cheapen the moment just to give Tobey Maguire something to do.
Oh, I know, but it's still...
That is a Toby moment hidden in a Tom Holland moment.
The thing is, the action sequence was still really good, though.
It was still really good.
Yeah,
it was still really good. I just didn't like that 2 minutes.
It's at the point where we have to find things to nitpick because it's so good. We're like,
honest to God, that was the one scene in the movie that I genuinely disliked.
I get that. It's
and I'm not saying that it was that bad. I'm just saying, of the whole movie, that was the one scene where I'm like, you know what? I don't really like this.
Yeah.
But it's still good.
I get that. That's I'm like, yeah, no, there's not really.
That was the one situation where Tom Holland's development was stunted in order for one of the other Spider-Men to have a moment.
Well, I see also from a long term, if we're getting a college trilogy, this also set up that he has that mean streak, that he can get caught up and not control his emotions, because if we're ultimately going to get the Black Suit Spider-Man and Venom in the Tom Holland universe, we need...
I don't think we're going to get Black Suit Spider-Man. I think we're just going to get Venom. Should we talk about that?
Yeah, let's wind it down. We'll talk about this.
I actually need a little bit of help with this one because I didn't watch Venom.
All right, I'll help you.
Or the sequel to Venom. Where he comes from, there's not a Spider-Man, right? because it's a separate universe.
Apparently not. So they don't set up anything like that except for the fact that the symbiote is a hive mind situation. So I assume that no matter what multiverse they're in, they're all knowledgeable of things, which is how he knew about Spider-Man. So they're kind of linking the Toby
because
Maguire.
he clearly got
Yeah.
pulled with everybody else, and he got sent back when everyone got sent back,
And when
which indicates that he knew who Peter Parker was.
And I think it's because the hive mind of the symbiote that was in Toby's, because that symbiote knew. And that's the only thing, because they really talked about the hive mind a lot in the second one. And then at the end of the second one, the stinger from that was he disappeared. It got sent to Tom Holland's world. And then they saw Spider-Man and Peter Parker on the screen. And like Venom's like, what's that? Looks tasty. And then he licks the screen.
Okay.
So, but then they decided to go to a bar and get drunk for apparently like 2 to 3 days. Like, and then
I like the realization. So there's a purple alien, and he wants stones.
That was my favorite part. Like, because say what you will, like Venom movies aren't that good at all.
That's why I haven't seen them.
And it's sad because the groundwork is so easily there. I would say from an appearance standpoint, that's not Tom Hardy looks like Eddie Brock, big, beefy muscles. The Venom suit, everything looks good. Could be needs a white spider on it, but I get the explanation why, because it has nothing to do with spider. So I think that's why the Tom Holland Venom will have it, because the spider's on it, because he gets part of Peter Parker and then gets the spider suit. So I think that's why this one's just been plain symbiote black. But I think I would, if the actor and the character,
should we emphasize that when he got pulled back to his world, a part of the symbiote was left behind.
Yes, and it did like a little goopy
that
jump
was the
thing.
mid-roll credits scene. So
And
there is a symbiote in the canon MCU. Yes. I guess we have to discuss.
No, we gotta discuss. Yeah, we gotta talk about it.
So to save the multiverse, or to prevent everybody who is aware of Peter Parker being Spider-Man from entering this universe and basically wiping it out, he completes the original spell. And he says his goodbyes to everybody, to the Spider-Man. He says it to MJ and to Ned. And he promises that he's going to go find them. And he goes to MJ and he's like got this whole spiel. And friend of the site, Ross, was very upset at the ending of this movie, to the point that he did not like it. So, and I have my opinions for where they're going with this. But basically, he goes to MJ and he's prepared to tell her, hey, here's who I am. Here's what happened. Let's do this. And he sees how happy they are. They're still friends. They're living their lives and doing their thing. And I think that Tom Holland, what I believe, how I interpret the ending of this movie, is Tom Holland sees that and realizes it doesn't need to be done right now. He doesn't need to win MJ back right now. He doesn't need to get Ned back right now. Instead of being a crazy person and explaining to them, hey, I'm Spider-Man and we were in love and like a day ago, but something happened and you don't remember me, like he's going to lose her forever. And I think he realized there's an opportunity now where he can kind of get a fresh start. He can build back into that and he can kind of naturally, gain some trust and stuff like that. He can focus on himself and being the best Peter Parker and the best Spider-Man he can be, while also focusing on them.
I hope he bumps into Mary Jane. Not Michelle Jones. But no, so this whole ending was based off of a one moment in time comic book arc. It's like a 4-issue arc from Amazing Spider-Man where very similar. Mary Jane's like wounded and he goes and he wants, instead of going to Doctor Strange, he goes to Mephisto, which is the big bad that everyone thinks is going to be Doctor Strange related. And the whole thing revolves around everyone forgetting who Peter Parker is. And it's really done. It's only 4 issues from Amazing Spider-Man. It happened in like the 600s. I don't know which ones, because Amazing Spider-Man ended at 700. I actually like that ending because
I do too.
It kind of gives us, now that going forward, we can have a Peter Parker Spider-Man like solo film. It's not Parker and Friends. It's not Spider-Man and Friends. We don't,
And that's the point. He made his new suit. He made it himself.
Oh, I love that throwback. It was like a hybrid of like
it's
everybody's.
Classic. It is a classic.
It had that nice shine.
Classic suit. The nice sheen to it.
The snow made it look better.
The point that I'm just trying to contest here with that ending is that I think he's at a high point, is because
I could.
he is finally getting to he has learned from these other two Spider-Men the lessons he couldn't learn from Aunt May or Tony Stark or people like that. He had too much help. And I think he realized that if he just goes back to the status quo, he will never grow to be as great as those Spider-Men are.
That's true.
And I'm not saying he needs to be alone,
No, he
but
just
he needs to figure out
who
how he wants to be Peter Parker and how he wants to be Spider-Man the same way Toby Maguire did and the same way Andrew
that's
Garfield did.
that's why I think
That's
he's
what
good
he's
at.
doing right now, and that's why I don't think they're going to do a black suit Spider-Man.
I don't think they would do it like I was gonna say 4 or 5 because I think they have to set him in the ways
I think
like
Venom's just going to be Venom, dude. And maybe he makes the spider because he sees Spider-Man and he's like, I can do that, and
I don't know.
I don't think they're going to retread that because like I don't think they want
I
to
think because it
fucking
was so
touch
poor.
Spider-Man 3 any more than they
Well, I
already
think it was
have.
because it was so poorly done. That's why
But
they would.
I also
But
think it's not worth doing it again though.
it's also Sony and Marvel. They like to go for iconic scenes from comic books and put them into even if it's something quick. And
Fair, please and thank you.
there's so much going forward, and like I'm not even like trying to think that far down the road because it's like
I'm incredibly optimistic for the future of
well
both Tom
I
Holland Spider-Man. Okay, question. Do we get another Spider-Man before we get another Avengers movie?
yes. No, wait,
Okay.
depends because are we talking regular Avengers or young Avengers?
Whatever their plan for the next Avengers is, because
I don't think
one
so
of
because I
two
think
things is
he's
going
going
to
to be in it.
happen. The question is, if Avengers comes first, Spider-Man isn't in it. I'm saying it right here. He is not in it unless he gets another movie. If
Well, no, wait, are we talking
if
Tom Holland Spider Man? Because like, what if secretly we get a Toby or an Andrew?
No, I'm saying either we get a Miles Morales, maybe that's what they do, and they do this, but I don't think they would do that. I don't think they would introduce Miles
No, they're
Morales
not gonna.
in a team
They're
up movie like that.
they're
What I'm
treating
saying
everything
is
like
I
Marvel is right now, where they're keeping certain things separate. So everything that's happening in the animated, they're not going to introduce Miles to a live action standpoint because he's the main focus of these animated ones.
I
It's kind of like
disagree. They're
Marvel,
100% going to introduce him.
not not
100%.
not in the next one.
No, but what I'm saying is that in Phase 5 there will be a Miles Morales.
Yes, but by the time Phase
But what
Five
I'm saying is,
starts,
do we
the
get
Spider
another
Verse is done.
phase do we get another phase for Spider-Man movie where he gets his solo adventure, which can then allow him to rejoin the Avengers? Or do we have an Avengers movie and at that point Tom Holland cannot be a part of it based on the ending of this film?
I
Yeah.
don't think Avengers. I don't know. I think if he does, it'll be Phase 5. I don't think he's going to be in Phase 4. I don't think we're actually going to get an Avengers film in Phase 4 because of everything going on with what they had to like. COVID obviously
But
changed a lot of the
so do you
filming
think
stuff.
this is the big team up movie?
For I see this more of as a Sony team up than an MCU team up. But from a Marvel standpoint, I don't see a team up because we're going to get Fantastic Four. They're going to be focusing now on the new IPs that came in, but also sadly Chadwick Boseman died, so Black Panther 2 is going to be like a whole different film than what I think it was originally planned to be. I think with Ant-Man and Wasp 3, that's going to be setting up more of like the tech, who's going to be the tech leader in the MCU now that Stark's not around. So because Pym Industries is a thing, Hammer Tech, I'm sure Justin Hammer from Iron Man 2 and 3, he's going to be back.
Oh, bring him back.
He's going to be
Give
back
that
because
man a chance to
and
do some
Shang-Chi
damage.
set up a lot of stuff. Like that's why I'm saying check out Shang-Chi because there's some cameos for some people and they set up a lot where I'm like, okay, they're definitely setting up like this Avengers B team, but they're not the B team. It's just they're not the founding members. And they're setting up more of the multiverse and mystic stuff, which I'm okay with because they shot their load with too many major iconic, like grounded, like Ultron and Loki as a villain. And we already had the fake Mandarin.
Yeah,
And
but you
so
could bring back Ultron.
cross oh yeah, no, I hope they do. I'm
Ultron could be a good villain.
like I if Ultron done right would be phenomenal.
Bring back
Like
the same guy to voice him though,
oh
because
yeah,
he's
no.
real good.
Yeah.
Um, you know what I think is really fun, and this is a little off topic, but like I just look at this situation where we're celebrating this great, Spider-Man team up as like, this great. I think this is more of a finale for Phase 3 than Far From Home ever was,
Oh yeah,
because this gives closure to Peter Parker on a certain level. Um, this would have been a much better movie than Far From Home. If this had been Far From Home,
oh yeah,
if they had just done this movie, it would have been way better.
yeah. Like
It
Far From Home was
maybe
still
wouldn't
like
have
a
been
Tony
as
Stark
good at
film.
that time. Yeah, but like Far From Home just kind of feels like the bridge to get from Homecoming to here.
Yeah, it needed that filler. It's like
But like
non-essential,
it's a
but
bad fill. It's not like it's not a good fill. I don't want to say it's bad, but it's not a
no.
great filler.
You just have to watch the first part of it and then the last part of it.
Yeah.
And like, but then again, with the whole Nick Fury thing, I think we're like, because they already said Secret Invasion is going to be on Disney Plus as a series, and I don't know if it's going to be live action or animated. And I'm like, these are things you could do in the movies, like Secret Invasion, Secret Wars, like we need that. Like that should be filled. Like that's your Phase 4 thing, is to create the scrolls or pretend. That's how you bring our Robert Downey Jr. back, because it's not him, it's the actor, but it's a scroll pretending to be Tony Stark. That's how you bring them in. That's how you bring them
Oh,
back.
that would be bad. Don't do that.
Well, it happens in
Don't
the
do that.
it happens in the comics. So
Don't
it's
do
one of those
that.
things where it's like all these things are being put on Disney Plus, and it's just like those are Phase 4, 5, 6 stuff that could happen, and I'm just like,
I just love how we're talking for Phase 4, 5, 6 for Marvel.
5 minutes later.
you know what's messed up is everyone's like, oh,
Number
251
3.
million, but you know what it is? It's still Sunday, so they have the day's not
I know.
over.
They're approaching Infinity War numbers.
I think it might.
That is insane.
I think it'll pass 300 before the
And
weekend's over.
I'm just like, I'm not trying to take anything away from Spider-Man.
No.
I know, again, this is spoiler cast for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
This movie is phenomenal, but it just continues
it
to
shows
upset me
what other people are
that
doing
like,
wrong.
yeah, that Marvel just cranks these things out.
And the fact that this was Sony,
And
who
they're
does not have a good track record. Sony,
they're
and they
so
don't have a good track
consistently
record.
good, but it's because Kevin Feige's there now.
Yeah.
And he reins it in, and he helps with that. And it's just,
4 is
if
already in
DC
pre-production,
could just
by the
do
way.
this.
4 is in pre-production already.
I saw that. Yeah, they're already working on the next
And
Spider-Man.
Feige is overseeing it with Sony. So
like, and you don't let Sony pick their director and do all that because it worked.
yeah.
But Feige is keeping it grounded in the MCU. And that's
And-
all DC needs. And just find somebody who you trust and let them do the work.
My favorite thing was they were so impressed when they were doing like the in-corporate like showings after everything was edited for Sony. They were so impressed with it. Feige had them go reshoot Doctor Strange 2 for 2 weeks to add more cameos in because of how good Spider-Man turned out when they were watching it. So that they're like, okay, let's do reshoots. Like this is the last week of reshoots because they're adding more to it because they did the deal with Sony, so we are getting a fourth Spider-Man. So I'm just like, okay, more cameos, you say. Is it any 2 actors I may know that I just saw in a film that just were from another multiverse? Like,
Bring back Alfred Molina.
I was just saying Andrew Garfield.
Yeah, I know.
Like Harry
they said
Osborn
they'd
wasn't
never
brought in
tell,
either,
so.
which is weird. I thought like because he knows in Spider-Man 3, Harry Osborn knew actually in Spider-Man 2.
Yeah,
'Cause
but
it-
isn't what's his face not in good standing right now?
He's not a good stand with anybody.
Yeah, so you definitely
Yeah.
don't have him in your film.
No, but it would have been cool for him to like bump into his dead dad, being like, "What?"
Just random guy on the street.
Yeah,
Just like, Harry? Excuse me?
right? It's the
No,
Harry
you know
from
what you
Amazing
do?
Spider-Man 2.
You get the actor for Harry Osborn from Amazing Spider-Man to bump into him and just, Harry? No.
Yeah.
Have them bump into each other. Do I know you? I don't know. It feels
It's the
like
tingles.
there's something there.
The tingles. But yeah, no,
You got that
there's.
tingle?
But the fact that Kevin Feige saw something in the final version of Spider-Man was like, we need to add more to.
Yeah, he saw
Doctor
it was
Strange.
a really good movie.
He added more to Doctor Strange, so I'm like, that's why I'm kind of like, okay, if we don't have any more Peter Parker, Tom Holland in the MCU, like tie into those like in his own isolated movies for like 1 or 2 more movies. I don't need him being team because he has to find himself now. I need that to be
Yeah,
the
he
focus.
needs another standalone movie before he gets involved again.
I would say 2 because we need the movie where he's finding himself in this and that. And then we need the one where he's finally like 100% like dead set in being Spider-Man. Like he's finally got like the full, no doubt, nothing that he's Spider-Man 100%.
Question.
Mhm.
Norman Osborn doesn't exist in his universe. No Green Goblin.
Really weird.
There's no Otto Octavius.
Really weird also.
Obviously Kingpin.
Well, okay. We not in New York though, so we don't know. There could be an Oscorp somewhere else. There could be. It could be a startup.
he said there's no Oscorp in this world on this world.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I'm going under the
Technicality.
assumption there's no Oscorp.
Yeah, we go based on technicalities.
So no, we're going based on what the movie has told us.
And
The
I'm
movie has
saying-
directly insinuated there is no Oscorp.
But no,
Okay. So who are the villains that are left on the table
Kraven,
for
Morbius, Kraven the Hunter, because that's been announced. That's happening as a movie.
Okay.
Morbius. Who else? I mean, there's a lot. Like, because you think about, we haven't had Rhino yet. Technically, we did an Amazing Spider-Man 2, but not in this universe. We can do Rhino. We got Black Cat finally. That Black Mask dude from the Amazing Spider-Man game is very popular. I could see him translating into live action. Kingpin, which could lead into tie-ins with Daredevil, which could lead into Punisher being that, a thing. I am hoping at one point we do get, just for comedic relief and the interactions in the comic books, Deadpool and Spider-Man with Hitmonkey. That's like still my dream. I saw a Facebook memory from like 9 years ago where it's like, it'd be great if we had Hitmonkey and Deadpool in a Spider-Man movie. Because it's literally a monkey that's a hitman chasing after Deadpool, and Deadpool goes to Spider-Man for help. And he's like, there's no monkey trying to kill you. He's like, there is. And then he gets shot at, and the monkey's just standing there like in a suit with sunglasses and guns. And he's like, you see the monkey, right? He's like, yes, you are telling the truth. This is awkward. But then also from the standpoint of after Far From Home and Nick Fury, and then Nick Fury being brought up again, and they're like, he's been off-world for a year.
I really liked, I will just say one thing. The one thing I did like about the end of that movie was the understanding when he's just like, Captain Marvel, and he's like, don't invoke that name.
Right.
Or do not invoke her name.
Yeah.
And then seeing the end of that in Far From Home and being like, that all makes a lot of sense now.
Right. Yeah.
I get it. And I see why I can see how this all comes together now. And that was really good. It was the one thing I did really like about that movie. And I apologize, that whole time you were talking, I was still trying to find my mouse. I just found it. It was gone. It was gone, dude. I had to unplug this. I turned my mouse off twice. The fuck?
Right? It's like, things. But yeah, no, I don't even want to think about the future of what they're going to do, because there's so many. But there's a lot of villains. There's like, especially if you go
dude, because Donald Glover's character, he's going to become what's his face?
Yeah, Shocker.
No.
No, not Shocker. Shocker was the other guy.
I'm imagining he's Miles's father's brother,
Yeah, that's his uncle. Miles's nephew, yeah. So he's going to be that Phantom dude or whatever it's called.
Not the Phantom. What's his name?
I forgot.
Fuck.
But yeah, no, there's a few, so we still have Shocker that could be done. There's a lot, especially if you go into crossovers with the MCU. There's a lot of options for villains, and I know they need a big bad for every single one, but I'd kind of like just a chill, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man film where he's just saving cats and shit and going to school. Also, I don't know how they're getting Ned and MJ in the future ones if he's in New York and they're in MIT, which is in Boston.
He's gonna go to Boston.
No, they would never put Spider-Man in Boston for a main setting. He's too much of an...
Either that or they're not going to go to MIT.
Well, remember at the end of the movie, they were at the diner, they were going over MIT stuff. And Ned already had the sweater. Yeah. So I don't think... Like I said, I think they might have small cameos here and there. I don't think going forward, they're going to be major characters in the films. I think something with Doctor Strange and Ned is going to happen. But I don't think Zendaya as MJ.
Aaron Davis, okay, and he is Prowler.
Yeah,
Oh my god, that was bothering me so much,
I was
dude.
close. I think I
I'm
said
sorry.
Phantom,
I
so I
I
had the P
had
right.
I
I had the
had to
P.
get that before we finished this.
You know what's sad
Prowler
is
is
it
probably the
I
next big
timed it.
villain.
It took me 7 seconds to get his name and everything up right as you said Prowler. I was like, oh yeah, your name. Boom, done. Yeah, I always go to IMDb and then Google search whatever their name is. That's how like when there's certain characters in like the Disney Plus shows, I'm like, let me Google that name real quick and see if they turn out to be somebody. And I'm like, they do. Okay. But yeah, no, there's a lot going forward. I don't know where it's gonna go. And like I said, if we're getting a college trilogy, we have 3 more, so
Yeah.
I can wait.
Um,
I
I'm
mean,
very optimistic for the
he
future
has
of
he has
Spider-Man.
a lot of other projects going up, so it's not like it's in pre-production. So it's not going to film anytime soon.
No, but
I don't think they're going to expedite it. They're not going to rush it.
I'm very optimistic for the future of
Yes,
Spider-Man. This movie was exceptional,
very,
top to
very.
bottom. Like this is
Yeah.
like a top 5 probably MCU movie.
Oh, easily. I mean, it's not going to push Winter Soldier out of the top 5, but it may.
It's not going to push Infinity War. It's not going to
You know,
push Endgame. It probably pushes Civil War.
yeah, because Civil War was kind of jumbled at some points, and like it was mainly one-liners and certain scenes that carried it. But like Winter Soldier is still top 3. That is just from start to
Winter
finish.
Soldier is a really, really
Yeah,
good movie with a really, really bad
it
ending.
really. I know, but still, just a good.
Just such a
What ruined that movie
fantastic
was it trying
movie.
to tie in to push the phase forward. Winter Soldier should have just had abrupt, real ending and not try and lead to other things for team ups. Like it should have just ended as is. But that's another story. We should really do a thing where we just like dive in and just like go through all the MCU stuff.
I mean, we could do it. We could just like dive into like a movie a week or something, you
Yeah,
know?
because
That could be a
that
good thing.
is because I want to go back and revisit most of them, especially
I
certain
think
ones
that
that
would
like.
be, you know what we could do? You know what's fun that people do? We get on Zencaster.
Mhm.
We tell people when we start playing the movie and we watch the movie
Oh
together
yeah,
and we
commentary.
live cast
There's
the movie.
there's a lot of podcasts
We
that I
could
actually
do that.
follow that do that. They do that with a lot of the there's one podcast that I watched that did that with all the Rocky films. And there's 4 of them, and like the shit talking and the jokes and the impersonations were so good, and I was like, oh, that's so good. We'll have to talk
I
about
think
that
we
again.
should do
We'll
that. I
definitely,
think that would
yeah,
be fun.
we'll definitely have to plan that out because that would actually be a
We
lot
will
of fun.
discuss.
Yes,
That could be a
this will
lot of fun.
be discussed and planned, and that could be a new venture.
This was speaking of jumbled, this was probably a jumbled episode, but I
Oh
think
yeah,
people got the point.
oh
And
yeah, no,
I think the point is also that this movie is way bigger than Spider-Man.
yes,
And that's maybe the biggest takeaway from this. This
and the fact
movie
that
is so important to the future of Marvel, Marvel Cinematics.
yeah,
You know,
because I'm hoping it just leads to less tie because like it showed you don't need all these tie-ins and foreshadowing to leading into other films. Like you could do an isolated film. That's how the MCU started, really. It
it
wasn't
also
until Iron Man
shows
2 that they really started to hint and throw some stuff in there. But then everything after that was like, oh, we got what's it gonna tie into next? Let's stay for the mid-credit scene. Ooh, who's a cameo? It's like they lost sight of just putting the hero in there and giving us that hero's story instead of just the big picture. Be like, well, we gotta lead to this and hint at that. And it's like, no, you can give us just a straight up Captain America movie. You can give us just an Iron Man or a Hulk or a Thor. We don't need all these freaking crossovers and implications. You can give us an isolated, just standalone hero movie. Yes, it's not working for DC, but that's because DC sucks right now, okay? But it is working. It works for Marvel. It's worked for Spider-Man because up until this Tom Holland ones, all those other Spider-Man films were on their own. They didn't tie into anything else because it was just Sony.
yeah, this was like a real big passing of the torch moment.
Yeah.
I really think that Tom Holland Spider-Man is kind of he's going to take Iron Man's spot on on the promos.
Yeah.
I think going forward, when the next team up does happen,
He's going to get the
he's
marquee
going to
spot.
be
Yeah.
in the prominent spot where you would put the Iron Man or the Captain America.
Yeah.
He is going to be in one of those spots.
Which is
And
2/3 larger than everyone else.
I feel so much better about that after this movie than I ever did before.
Nice. All right, we're gonna wind it down. Do you want to plug any of your stuff, your social media, Twitch? I know you're a Twitch streamer.
I'm still streaming twitch.tv/nightmarecv. I'm still on Twitter. tweeting, I guess. Nightmare CV at Nightmare CV.
All the links will be below, whether you're listening on audio or watching. All the links will be there, so you can click on them and it pops up and you get follow, subscribe, or whatever the words are that they use, because every site is different for what they use for terminology.
Those are the two things I'm really doing right now,
Mm.
and we're not doing half gen anymore. Unfortunately, the site is down, and it was I checked it the other day. It was down because we canceled the hosting and stuff. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a little sad. That was a bit of an emotional moment, but it's for the best, kind of for what we're doing. And I have so many ideas for things I want to do, and I just got to have a good plan if I'm going to do them. Because if I'm going to try something else, I got to give it 180%,
Yep.
because 100% ain't enough.
No, why do you think I now have a
And
camera
so
stand for Gundam
maybe-
model kit making? It's like you gotta go. You can't half-ass it.
So maybe there will be talks with Mark in the future about maybe doing some stuff
The collaboration
that's not
is it.
related to his show.
No.
I have some ideas I got to run by him,
I like
and
ideas.
maybe whether that ends up maybe you hear from me here a little more often, or maybe there's another place and maybe I drag Mark into it kicking and screaming. I'm not going to invite myself onto his show. That's his business, but I think based on the conversation we just had, this is probably not the last you've heard of me.
There's a lot more we need to dive into, and it will happen.
We have a lot more to discuss.
Right. All right, man. I thank you for being on again.
I appreciate you having me.
You hold the record. You hold the record still.
I got it. If anyone gets close, you have to warn me. I need to get on here.
Only other person who's close right now is Daryl from the Loop Bros podcast. And oddly enough, I got a message about doing a recording, and I was like, no, I'm already in one. Sorry. Like, I'm doing my show right now.
Stay away from my record, Daryl.
There's a little circle we have, like, all of us that just, like, jump on each other's shows and this and that. And I'm like, yeah, because it's fun. Every once in a while, you can't do a solo one forever. Every once in a while, you got to have, like, another voice on there, because I couldn't ramble for a spoiler of this and be like, play by play, because there's always different opinions.
Yeah, solo, you just have to ramble at that point.
Yeah. And I've done it for a few things. Like, most of my review ones I keep under 15 minutes, but like even spoiler ones for like TV shows and movies. But like I was like, no, not for, this is too big of a film. This is bigger than me. This is bigger than everybody.
It's like you need a team up.
Yeah.
Pull from the multiverse of podcasters.
It's like I'm just like Chris. It's like you're not Chris.
Find me a co-host.
Yeah.
Find me a co-host, Chris.
Right.
Let me text him.
You're just walking in with a Baconator and a Frosty. You're like, what? I was just driving. And
I'm drinking this on your show. It's already melted. I gotta.
Well, all right. Thank you again for. Obviously, links will be down below for you can follow, subscribe, and all that good jazz. This was a long episode. I can't wait to edit it. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
I'm sorry, I talk a lot.
My editing style is just put it on the timeline. Cut the intro and the outro, empty space, put the intro audio in the beginning, line it so there's a little bit of a fade out right as you start talking, and then I'm like, publish.
I mean, this one at least the last time we got together and recorded, didn't we have like some technical difficulties?
Yeah, I had
I
had technical difficulties with the video because the call ended halfway through it, but it was still recording for some. But this time there's no issues, so it's like the other one. The other one I was able to do the audio. I couldn't salvage the video because the second half of the recording there was no video, even though it said you never left, but the audio was 2 pieces, the video was 1 piece, so it made so it was just black after that. So I was like, but this one there's no issues, so that's fine.